Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. We are right on time. So thanks for everybody who's joined us. I will typically give a couple of minutes for people to join if they've forgotten. So please bear with us for a couple of minutes, and then I'll get going with the session. Unfortunately, I don't have any elevator music with me this morning or this afternoon, I should say, Melbourne time, but maybe I'll have one ready for next time. Unless
Can
Arshy or
you
Abhishek, you've got a
can you
great voice.
imagine?
You like to
Can you
sing?
ima I said, can you imagine the elevator music of culture and tech? Can you imagine the mix?
And the people from different worlds, like which
Yes,
type of music we
exactly.
select, right?
I know.
Uh, so we'll just wait. So while I'm waiting, Arshy, where are you coming from and what time is it?
I am sitting in Dubai. It is 11 a.m. And it's very nice and sunny. The weather is changing, so it's time for everyone to get jealous. This is Dubai's possibly best time of the year. So yeah, this is where I
Fantastic.
am.
And Abhishek, what about you? Where are you coming from and what time is it?
So I am also in Dubai, and the weather outside, as Ashi said, that it's getting better. It was very, very humid this morning. I just went out for a walk with my dog and found it still time to get some cooler weather to get for early morning walk. Yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, I can tell you it's 5:01 p.m. in Melbourne, Australia time. And it's semi-miserable and rainy, which is always the case in Melbourne most of the time. We always get four seasons in one day. And we've had our third season and we'll probably get the fourth season in about an hour. So anyway, I think we've got a good set of numbers to start. So once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks again for joining us as one of our regular Random Walk AI webinars. It's going to be a fantastic panel and conversations that we're going to have today. Before I introduce the panelists and myself, just a couple of house rules. Please use the Q&A section if you have a question so we can formally address it. But if you just have a conversation or you want to just, I don't know, talk to people or just agree or just put links or anything, by all means, continue to do that in the chat. But where possible, put your questions in the Q&A because I'm sort of monitoring that separately. The session is going to go for 58 minutes because we've just waited 2 minutes. But we'll give plenty of time during the Q&A at the end. But please, as the questions do pop in your heads, pop it into the Q&A. If I feel, you know what, that question is pertinent and it should be asked at a timely fashion, I'll pull that out and I can sort of adjust it to the panelists so we can sort of give you a bit of input into that. So that'd be useful for everybody. So a round of introductions. My name is Amir Ansari. I'm coming to you from down under Australia in Melbourne. As I said, it's 5 o'clock. I'm the Chief Experience Officer and Head of Applied AI at an education company called Academy XI. And we are a wonderful partner. We partner greatly with Random Walks. So we've been working together for quite some time and often have the luxury of being invited to host many of these sessions. So, and I've been in the design field for over 25 years, building and growing design capability and playing with AI over the last 3 years. Now, I've got with you some two amazing panelists. We have Ms. Arshy Ahmed. So she's an executive coach with experience in marketing, communications, and change leadership. She's worked for the companies of the likes of Coca-Cola, although I'm a bit of a Pepsi drinker, Arshy, I'm sorry.
No, no.
Although I don't drink much fizzy drinks anymore. Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, Air Liquide as marketing director, and also in digital transformation across Europe, Middle East, and Asia. So thanks to you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And then we have Mr. Abhishek David. So he's the Associate VP of Head of Talent Management and Leadership Development at Dubai Islamic Bank. He's an HR management executive and a transformation leader. He's a result-driven leader with extensive experience in establishing robust HR strategies, especially around culture, while including, while making sure they retain talent across the organizations, organizational development, and overall just driving transformation across the organization. Abhishek has been ranked among the top 25 influencers and HR leaders of 2024 by Quandl. So thanks for joining us today as well, Abhishek.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So, let's get into it. We've got a bunch of questions that we've prepared in advance, but by all means, please put your questions into the Q&A section and I can address them. Now, we're going to start with you, Arshy. Now, you've been a bit controversial with us, right? So, Peter Ducker, for people who don't know, amazing management consultant. He came up with a quote many years ago about culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so we came up initially with a title of this webinar, culture eats tech for breakfast. But obviously, Arshy had to sort of flip that on its head and suggested that we actually change the topic to, what is it? Oh, yeah, tech eats culture for breakfast.
Culture.
So I guess I'm curious to know from you, Arshy, what was the trigger or the catalyst for that change in the topic? Talk to us about tech and culture and which tail is wagging which part of the dog?
Yeah. Oh, I love this topic. So do you remember, well, you two might remember, I'm hoping we're from similar generations, but when we were growing up, my mom had this like line outside the kitchen door where she would measure my height every 6 months or a year, so we would go there and every time you'd see a little bit of a change. And then there came a year where all of a sudden you're like, you're here and you don't know what to do with that anymore. It's the acceleration pace, I think, of tech that has really left all of us very overwhelmed. And that is why I make the statement about what is tech really eating culture? And I think it is. And I think it's doing it in ways that we're not seeing within organizations because we're really trying to just adopt to this accelerated pace because you're just going, like the clothes aren't fitting anymore. I'm actually a different person because now I'm like a teenager. So all of these things are happening and you don't know how to adopt to them because it's happened so quickly. So I think that's when I was talking to Cha, I was like, well, really, I'd love to be in a space where I can say strategically we're managing technology, but I think it's sneaking in and I think it is eating. And now the challenge is for us to keep humanization at the heart, make sure that we drive it strategically to our advantage rather than the other way around. But as of now, I think it is possibly creeping in ways that we are not able to manage what our cultural dynamics are in organizations, and we're fleeting. So we're running to keep up. So that is kind of where the thought came from, Amir.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm curious to know, Abhishek, do you have any thoughts on this?
So I would say, and I would again give an example as Arshy shared one, so there were 3 or 4 big tech advent which happened in terms of industrialization or in terms of in last 60, 70 years, and definitely it was the advent of computer, advent of internet coming into force, the whole social media element, and now the tech and the AI coming into the organization or in the industry. So the first 4 or the first 3 which I talked about primarily came in at a little slower pace, and as they came into, we started preparing ourselves as organizations get those computers, internet connection, slower speed, those dial-up networks. It took some time to get those innovations come into speed and the elements to come into use. But as the AI unfolded in last 2.5, 3 years, has been to a scale or to a pace which has never happened. And as an organization or as an industry expert, we are yet not ready to adapt and fully utilize all of those what is available in the market. We are seeing jobs changing in much faster pace as it could be. There is a fear amongst individuals in the organization and even outside the organizations, those who want to get into the job market, that how will they get into the job market in 3 years down the line? Think about those school kids, those who are going to get pass out in 2 to 3 years and get into the working and employment zone. What will they prepare for? The pace of change is so fast that they don't even know what jobs they're going to do after 2 years. So I feel that the whole anxiety, the whole the whole shift and the whole pace in which we are changing is much more faster than we could ever imagine.
Absolutely.
I feel to this new generation, maybe they need to go to the shops and buy a glass, magic glass ball and ask it, what do I need to do in 4 years? Now that was a good warm-up question, and I do want to put a poll out to the audience. So hopefully you should see it popping up on your screen. So we'll love to know, and I will share the results with you obviously afterwards. But we've got 3 questions. One is, do you believe that technology is transforming your company's culture faster than leadership can adapt? Please respond to that poll. And I think that's very much a good segue to the conversation we've had. Second question, do you feel confident leading digital transformations, given that it has a huge impact on culture? And the last one, what aspect of digital transformation needs the most improvement in your company? So we've got a huge number of participants, fantastic. So I might give a couple more minutes, but as people are filling this out, it reminds me of, a story. This is probably going back 10 years where I was in the UK and at a conference where someone on the stage was talking about the irony in that this individual was responsible for providing technology input for policy for the UK government. And he said, I provided input and guidance to this minister. This minister's in power for 4 years. It takes him 3 to 4 years to potentially enact on that, guidelines and create a new law policy. The day after I provided that guideline, my recommendation is already obsolete because technologies move so quickly. So how can we expect an individual, as a minister or a policy person who already is not tech savvy, to make decisions for the general public and general good when technology moves that fast? Now, I just thought about that as you were talking, Arshy. Culture change is even slower. Like we think government moves slow, but we can see the policy moving quick. Culture is even slower. How can we expect for culture change to keep up with this thing called AI or VR or, the next technology? Like that's a real challenge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it kind of makes you think about your basic values when it comes to things like change management, right? So when digital transformation was in its earlier stages, before Abhishek mentioned the AI kind of really swept over, we still had some control, we had some hand on. We're like, okay, this is the process. It's called change management. We're going to take everyone through this slowly, and we're going to do it together, and everyone's going to become standardized. And then they were like, what? This doesn't work. So I think in my personal experience doing a lot of change management, I think the theory is the same.
Right.
The theory is you have to get to know the DNA of what you're trying to change. Okay. And at the pace you need to change it. It's just that right now we don't have a lot of that knowledge or expertise, so we're shuffling a bit. So, I'll give you an example. When we were going through a lot of digital transformation at Air Liquide, every country had its own challenges. Every region had its own challenges. And what you had to realize that it wasn't tech that was scaring them. It was their own cultural belief system that we had to work with. So Europe was all about, data privacy, governance, how this is going to land. Middle East was all about relationships. Oh my God, the distributors, will they still like me? Southeast Asia was all about the fear of change. They were just not able to get there. So it's about understanding who you're trying to make to adopt to what, like understanding the organization's DNA and working with that, and then understanding the pace at which they can go. So I feel the basics still hold. It's just that it's just happening so fast that we need to test and learn pretty quickly in order to manage the change, and maybe do it in pockets. Does it have to be throughout the organization everywhere to be successful? Possibly not. So, kind of that's where my head is at.
Maybe instead of, there's an analogy of you hold someone's hand and you walk through the change, you're now running as if it's the sprint, going, come on, hold my hand, and dragging them along, which is not very conducive. Thanks to people who filled out the poll. I'm going to end the poll now and just share the results to see if there's anything of surprise. So, do you believe that technology is transforming your company's culture faster? Yes, leadership is struggling to keep up pace. That's roughly 36%. Somewhat, but leadership is trying to adapt. It's sitting around 45%. No, our leadership is ahead of the curve. That's fantastic. We're interested to see which organizations they are. Do you feel confident leading digital transformation? Somewhat confident seems to be at 52%, which is great. Very confident at third. That's fantastic. So we've got a good audience here. And obviously not confident, which is, not a surprise because as we just talked about, digital transformation, which equals culture change, is very difficult. And last one, what aspects of digital transformation needs the most improvement in your company? Leadership buy-in. Interesting. Training and development. I think we've got amazing people in here who can definitely talk to that. And technology infrastructure. Well, we always know technology is obviously a couple of steps behind and you're dealing with legacy tech and stack. Any comments you'd like to make on this before I jump to the next question, team?
I would like to take from your cue that as we were walking and now we have to run. So I'm a runner, I do marathons. So for running, most important thing is the kind of shoes you wear, where you're running, where you're practicing. Are you practicing uphill, downhill, all of that, right? In the same context of the digital change, I would say that the two aspects which are key, when it comes to the whole transformation culture change is the ecosystem ready to provide you that change opportunities, or is the ecosystem is catalyst to your cultural change? For example, Dubai is an example of amazing leadership influence to drive AI into everything they do right now. So they have a ministry of AI from a government perspective. The whole infrastructure is getting developed. The ecosystem has been coming together basically to build and help organizations transform. So this is from the external ecosystem, the socioeconomic part of change. Within the organization change, definitely people said leadership buying in the organization is key, though training development, IT, tech infrastructure, these are some of the elements which we call in academic terms, dynamic capabilities, right? So there's a term in academic which is called organizational capacity for dynamic capabilities. Defined, you're able to maneuver towards those resisting behavioral changes or changes for the organization to overcome. So you basically retain your core part, which you're good at doing, and keep some element or some portion of your capability and competences to change with time. And nowadays we require more and more of those change related dynamic capabilities coming into organization. And we call these organizations in academic terms again ambidextrous organization, to hold on to what you're good at doing and also create a portion or an experimenters group who take the organizations forward. So both the ecosystem outside the organization as well as the inside the organization, which plays to help build this digital culture, which we can term as.
And it sort of, sorry, Mika, it just sort of also reminds me of the shift in power that's happening, right? So the shift in power for me is that human intuition, or what we relied on in terms of making all these decisions and coming up with ideas, is being replaced by very, very smart, efficient data systems. And as people who want to grow quickly, make money quickly, organizations tend to go for that. But what it's doing to us is that where the power is shifting. I remember in my sort of, growing up as a marketeer, around the table, my director would ask all of us what we thought. One by one, everyone had to give an opinion. We all talked about the copy and the advertising. Now it's all put into AI and it will come up with a whole summary of everything that's right, wrong, what to do, how to do it. So this shift in power is really also challenging us, because how do we maintain us at the core? We can't just change. We can't just let go of all this intuition because it's beautiful. It makes us who we are. And I think that's also one to really look out for.
Yeah, thank you. And then just going back to you, Abhishek, I guess, this whole notion you talked about, Southeast, well, and Arshy did, Southeast Asia, different cultures, different DNAs. Some people are just saying we've always done it this way, this is how we do things, or, this notion of keep milking the cash cow. So let's not break things that's not broken. I guess, Abhishek, do you have any specific examples in your, experience where that challenging that status quo has led to a breakthrough?
So,
that you?
so primarily in my previous experience, so I worked for a retail firm, and a retail organization in this part of the world primarily are very rigid to change. It's quite store oriented. People will come to your store and get the shopping and get out and all. And they did not rely so much on tech transformation then. And it was few years back. It was pre-COVID. And as the COVID hit, things move completely e-commerce based, and that's where they need to change and look at using some of the elements of digital or e-commerce to change the overall strategy of how to reach to the customer, because retail is all about reach to the customer. Also, they started using a completely AI generated pilot program around capturing the customer experience and how they can translate it into to proper merchandising goods and stores in their e-commerce stores. So one of the excellent examples to that, banks have been automating in this part of the world, primarily when we say that we only manage money, but it's beyond money right now. Also from Southeast Asia, India perspective, that whole payment system in India, UPI and all of that has been a path-breaking technological advancement, which UAE is also trying to bring in. So we're gonna have like straight payments, mobile to mobile, and all your accounts are automatically adjusted and the transactions goes behind. So those kind of a large scale industry level improvements are already started to happen, and I think there is a lot which is going to change in the future. There is very thin line now between a fintech and a bank. It's all that together, and your marketplace is open for competition for both of them equally.
No, thank you. Arshy, actually got a question for you from a participant. So I know it's a good time, so I thought maybe I'll point it to you, but by all means, Abby can jump in too. So a question for Arshy: how can we effectively drive individuals? So I'm going to take individuals to be not just an individual, but a collective group and entire organizations. But how can we drive individuals to change at their core beyond just adopting new tools to truly integrate technology into the daily mindset and behaviors, like proper change of behavior, right? So the question is, in your experience, what strategies have proven successful in shifting that mindset and fostering a culture that supports ongoing digital transformation? Because it doesn't stop, right? Any thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think we work with it every day, right? But the first thing that popped up in my mind was cultural fragmentation. So what's happening a lot is that as we're getting better at working on individuals and what they need and how they grow and exactly what they like and the colors they like, we're forgetting group, right? We're forgetting group, community, culture, organization. And I'll tell you why I'm mentioning this to answer this question. But human beings are all about society. Okay, we cannot operate as individuals as we know today. We know how the world operates. So that's again tugging us because we're getting so good at knowing exactly what Amir wants and eats and likes and dislikes, what time he wakes up and sleeps, that all of a sudden us together, the three of us, what do we have in common? So the culture is becoming fragmented due to individual fragmentation. So now what's happening is when we do individual training programs and you go to an organization, you can customize it to the T, right? But is that necessarily good? Is it okay to just have me work on mine? What happened to group? So I think the challenge when it comes to mindset or mind shift change is one to always treat us as part of a whole, as a part of a society. Working in groups is super important for mind shift changes rather than working on individuals alone. So when I coach executives, I really encourage them to do group coaching when it comes to things like transformation, because when everybody watches it together, it really helps that kind of belief system. That's one thing. Second thing, something that I want to talk about a little bit later maybe is imposter syndrome. We're all going through it in this generation. Tech has come out of nowhere. We've always been the best at what we've been. And all of a sudden we're like, who are these new kids who know more than us? So we have a very different way of dealing with it. So you have to reframe. So the second bit of my answer would be reframe the situation. You are no longer a master. You don't need to be a master at tech. You just need to be a curator. You have to bring knowledge together. So you have to believe that that's not your role in this whole changing dynamic world. You just have to bring people together. You have to be curious, and and be coached through it as well. It's very difficult to just always do it alone. So I'd say work with groups, work together through the change process, and then understand really what your mind, like what is holding you back.
You heard it here first, guys. There's a framework there, right there for you. Write it down because it's not going to come back. No, thank you, Arshy. That makes a lot of
Thank you.
sense. Abhishek, we can't have this conversation without talking about AI, right? So
Yeah.
obviously you've got amazing experience in talent management and digital transformation at Dubai Islamic Bank, amongst other companies. I'm curious to know, how is AI being integrated into employee training programs within your current organization? And more importantly, what specific skills or knowledge are being prioritized to ensure that employees are equipped to actually effectively use this AI technology?
So, my current organization, we use AI at a very limited space. So, not too much, so much so that as the world has moved on to, but a lot of use, what we primarily do, along with our external partners, is to personalize the learning paths, and that AI is very good at. So generates the content, generates the way you want to learn, and then we can individualize those learning paths for the individuals at across the level. So that becomes easier. The chatbots, the virtual coaches. I will give you example of all of this in a while. Also, a lot of AI use and the system and the data is used for predictive analysis. So we started working on a lot of lead data than the lag data. So when we don't work on attrition, rather you work on retention. So what are my retention percentage, the risk of losing individuals? So those are some of those analytics, and also looking at data has completely changed as the AI came into picture. Also continuous learning, so career advancement based continuous learnings, and that by itself is a study and an area which we focus on constantly, because this part of the world as well looks at the GCC and all. We look at a lot of nationalization initiatives wherein bringing the locals, being the Saudis, being the UAE nationals, up to the speed, to in terms of leadership, in terms of tech knowledge, in terms of business knowledge, in terms of the subject and functional areas. So so that as well is quite helpful when it comes to use of AI in these areas. The path-breaking work which has been happening around talent and learning side for AI is something called Sana Lab. They've come up with a completely set of tech-enabled, AI-enabled tool that all you need to do is type in your learning areas of interest, or put your assessment report or interest, um, and it will automatically look at all your profile data and suggest a learning path, give you the content which is only individualized to you, as well as different methods to learn it. So what are the videos, who you can see, who are the thought leaders in that area, and all of that. So it's a path. It's called Renaissance Imagination or something, and I would send the link here. Please have a look at it. Josh Person has been talking about it this morning. That how the learning is been using AI to completely individualize everything that you need, and to the extent uh, that that has to have a positive outcome to all of this.
Thank you. So Archie, I'm going to put this one to you. It's still around the topic of AI, but obviously you've got amazing experience in that marketing and change leadership. Maybe you can share some of your I guess experience around what where AI has managed to provide a positive, impact and experience on marketing, communication, and also leading change across some of the big brands that you're working on.
Of course. So firstly, I'd like to say I really wish I was there. I really wish this was there when I was young. So this is what I would do, right? I mean, I would like read the labels to find the full stops, make sure the spelling was correct. Okay. Then it would go into a round of approvals. Everyone have to sign the papers, right? Then it would still come back and say, oh, wait a minute, the full stop is still missing. And then you're like, okay, then it would go back around the approvals, right? Then it would go to legal, then it would go to development, and then they'd still come back and say the full stop is not there. So can I just say, like, life has changed for these kids, and I love it, and amazing. So we've come a long way, and I think the future is even more exciting. I mean, personally, what excites me, Abhishek's also touched on it a little bit, is predictive AI. And it's not just about predicting based on historic data, but it's powering, it's powered by neuroscience. It's literally picking up by knowing you what is going to make you create action. Okay, so you're designing visuals and creatives now based on how you will react. So if my intent is for you to press purchase or buy, the visual created is such that works in your mind to press buy. It is like that intuitive, but also understands you that well. So predictive AI is absolutely fantastic. Things like, automating content, SEO optimizations, all of this is now very much customized to your needs. Research is super exciting. Again, like dinosaur example, but we would take about 6 months to figure out if something was working, and the boss would be like, hold, let's not make quick decisions, let's see if it really works. And now you've got AI A/B testing, and you're like in seconds changing copies, finding the new ones, and moving forward. And I did this workshop a few months ago, and then the question was like, okay, so what do marketeers do now? Right. So what do we do? And I think, the word strategy is like a big word, but yeah, we strategize. There's so much more now they have the space and ability to do, because they're not checking copy, and they're not just coordinating the small changes in social media. They're really talking about how brands will make impact, do big things, and I think that's the space they have. What they do with it is, I think, up to the new generation as well, to create space in that world. But yeah, extremely exciting future, I think, for marketing.
100%. I'm so excited to be living in this era, but I think every generation, like when the 8mm camera came out without sound, I'm sure my dad was saying, "Oh my God, I love being in this generation." I think every generation will love. But just to riff off what you've just said, Arshy, as well, I think what's really interesting is that people, for the first time, I think the reason people struggle to go, what's my role, is because they've always been used to do those repetitive, mundane tasks, right? They thought that's part of who they are, it's part of their identity. And they don't really realize that by, this technology taking over some of those tasks, it now does free them up to really be thinking through. And I think the reason I run a lot of AI workshops and teach people the fundamentals is because it's a lack of understanding the fundamentals of what this technology does, that's putting fear into individuals, so they're not embracing it. So then they're falling behind. So the next person who uses AI is replacing them, and they go, "Oh, my job's at risk." And I think there's a meme and quotes going around: AI won't replace your job, but there's someone who's using it will, right? That's going around. Or likewise at the company level, AI won't replace your company, but a company who's using AI effectively will. So I think we're going to talk about training in a second, but I think this is a paramount for individuals to be embracing this. And let's be honest, this is not cryptocurrency, right? This is not non-fungible tokens where people still trying to get around. This is a text box where you just type text as it comes to your mind, and the technology.
Not even type, I'm just like speaking now. Her name is Sally. Okay. It's Sally.
So the barrier, I think, using this technology, look, it's already in your WhatsApp app, in your Facebook Messenger, it's embedded. And I think more people need to just go, you know what, in a safe fashion, by understanding the fundamentals so they know how to use it safely, you can start to embrace this. But I was going to ask the next question, and this is for you, Abhishek. So let's talk about cultural change and organizational strategy. I think Arshy mentioned the word strategy here, right? Cultural change is often being thrown to HR departments to do, right? Oh, it's your responsibility, HR, make culture change happen. But often it becomes a second-class citizen to actually the company strategy, right? Which often takes that sort of the limelight. How do we make sure culture change, especially we've talked about how hard it is, Abhishek, to be focused at the strategy level, especially in this age? How do we make sure that it's raised from being second or third as an initiative, Abhishek, to just being, no, this is fundamental, it's really important?
So, culture used to be in the HR agendas, or as we were discussing, and now cracking those codes are very, very important for digital transformation, because a lot of these McKinsey's and Deloitte's data says that 40 to 50% of tech transformations fail. And I talk from two tech transformations which has failed right in front of my eyes in my previous and current organizations. And it's very, very important that how do we find as an organization a balance between what am I doing and what I'm going to change. So continuity and change is the two aspects which I feel a culture change will require. And then these two elements are primarily part of strategy and not part of HR agenda, and definitely. So MIT Sloan article around cracking the culture code for digital transformation says that this balance of continuity and change has to be understood by the leaders, to manage these change, which happens at the digital transformation or during the digital transformation time. It's one of the well-read article in MIT Sloan. There's a book which is also talks about strategy for culture change, and the writer Paul Bate, he talks about that it's very, very important to diagnose that what we are sitting on. So if we are currently on a culture which is or elements of culture which is not conducive to bring in those change and transformation, it's important right from the stage of bringing that understanding, doing a diagnosis, moving into building those strategies for change, and that has to be an organization-wide change. So whose responsibility is change? Is everyone's responsibility in the organization, including leaders, employees, or HR, right? So that is the bottom line, which this particular book as well, by Paul Waite, it talks about. It also talks about how do you manage resistance, right? Because all of these change we talk about changing culture, values, vision, mission, all of that. And with that, you bring in a lot of resistance among a set of individuals, right? So there will be some set of people who are pro to it. There will be some set of people who will be resisting it. And how, as an organization, we manage that resistance. So there was a very interesting study which says that how many percentage of people you need in an organization or in a team to change the culture. So, and the number is, guess a number, what percentage it should be.
Oh, I feel like this is a trick question.
Yeah.
Come on, Amir. You can take it.
Well, no, I don't work in the HR. I'm going to put it to you.
Give it in a percentage. Give me a percentage.
No, Arshy,
100%.
No, okay.
I think it's very, very small. So
Yeah,
again,
I'm thinking less than 10%, maybe 5%. You just need a
it
core.
says 30%. So 3 out of 10, basically. So you need 3 out of 10 to display common behaviors, and that will help you transform everybody to work around that. So I think I want to leave the audience with a thought that it's not just about change, because these 3 out of 10 will need to bring that change. But how do you retain them? How do you sustain that change and increase that number from 3 to 4 to 5 and to 10 out of 10 is the key. So sustaining similar behavior, similar beliefs in the organization is also important, because of success will help you drive those changes quite quickly. But when it is a failure, when your transformations fail, when your implementations fail, it is difficult to retain and sustain that behavior and culture together.
Thank you. Both of you use the word leadership a couple of times, and there's a couple of questions from the audience around leadership. So maybe my next question will answer some of that, but otherwise I think we'll go to some audience question. Arshy, we're all humans, right? We all have imposter syndromes, from C-suites, from presidents of countries, right down to the person who, you know, picks apples in a fruit orchard. And you're an executive coach. In this age where technology is moving so quick and it's so new that even leaders are struggling to keep up, and I know that firsthand because I do fundamental workshops for leadership level because they don't understand the fundamentals. How do you manage and how do you deal with or coach leadership level around the whole imposter syndrome to continue being good leaders, especially when they're embarking on an era with technology that they don't potentially even know themselves or feel confident with? Share your thoughts on that. What's happening in that space?
So I think the story that's coming in my mind is, you know, I grew up with a mother who was like my superhero. Okay. Since I was little, every drawing room, every dinner conversation, she would tell everybody, all my aunties, that she can do everything. She can do anything, you know, she can do anything. So whereas that was amazing as parenting, and you know, this is why, you know, I got the confidence to do a lot of things where I came from, my culture, and I had no limits. But what happened was there are lots of things that she can't do. Okay. And then when Archie started to face them, she was like, oh God, I'm a failure, you know? And oh my God, like I have to be able to do it because my mom told me many years ago, I can do everything. So the thing with imposter syndrome is it is in all of us, well, 70% statistically, but it is in all of us due to many very different reasons. There's a high achiever, there is the expector, there's the perfectionist, you know, and it comes in us in very different ways. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's our experience that drive us there. It's just when we can't recognize where it's come from, you start panicking and you start thinking, oh, there's something wrong, you know, that I'm not able to do it. I can't walk into this room full of people because I'm not good enough to walk into it. But there's actually something that happened when you were 6 that's kind of coming back at you, right? So what I do with a lot of executives is first figure out the source of it. And I think it's very important. They just have to hold it and they have to recognize it. They have to recognize that there's nothing wrong with it and why they've come to this point in their career and why is it troubling them now, you know, what is the source? And that takes a while, you know, it doesn't happen in one session. But I think when they can see it, they'd say, okay, I see you and I see where you're coming from. I'm not going to try to solve you because, you know, you were the 30, 40 years of you existing. So I'm not changing you, but I can see you. And then you work on reframing the conversation. So if it's about technology, for example, you're feeling out of your depth because you don't know technology, but that's okay. Are you supposed to know technology? Is that your job? What is the purpose? Are you a leader? What is your role? Should you focus on purpose and get people in to focus on technology? So you reframe their level of mastery. I think I mentioned it before as well. You make them like curators. You give them the autonomy to be a curator as a leader rather than being somebody who knows everything. Leaders feel like they have to have a opinion on everything, right? Like they have to, like everyone looks at them actually, you know, you're like on a table and everyone's like looking at the leader, like give me the final decision. And they do it out of pressure because that's what they think they're expected to do. So that's how you work with them as a coach is first you figure out where this imposter frame is coming, where is it rooted, hold it, watch it. Then you reframe what is your role in this moment of imposter, whether it's tech or some sort of change. What do you want your role to be? And then you kind of move through that journey. And I think one really important thing is always stay curious. You know, that's my thing with leaders all the time is like, you can't, as Abhishek said, one of the biggest thing is continuity. This is, you know, sustaining it. If you're not curious, that's when you're going to fall behind. You don't have to know everything, but you have to have this desire, you know, to want to know what's sort of coming forward. And if you don't mind, I want to say one thing because it's been the two words that the two of you mentioned, I think is really important. One is this continuity and one is psychological safety. Okay. And I think there's a bit of a tug going on with psychological safety in digital. And it's important for the audience, I think, to hear it. As we've moved away from physical contact a little bit, some places more than the other, people have not been talking to people when they're feeling vulnerable. Okay. People have now started talking to Sally, ChatGPT, when they've got questions, which are like, my friend and I are having issues. What do you think? When you're not being vulnerable in front of humans and really not having those spaces anymore, by the coffee shop, like in an office, you're not showing vulnerability. And when you don't show vulnerability, you don't feel safe. Right. So I think this is really important. That's why people are not feeling safe in these environments, because they're not able to, really explore what humans do best, is talk and engage and be vulnerable and shout and scream. And that's okay. That's us. And that, again, I'd say for organizations to create intentional spaces, be smart about it. I know the online world is happening. Intentional spaces where we can be human, talk, be vulnerable, share, where we just don't have to rely on technology to talk. So that last one just came to my head to talk about.
And I can attest to that. So for people in the audience who don't know, Melbourne broke the world record for the longest continuous number of lockdowns during COVID.
Oh, wow.
So I can actually sit here and tell you, across the world, I experienced more lockdown during COVID than anybody, on this call than potential audience, right? And so with that came so much, I guess, disruption, Arshy, of the natural ways I, as a human, used to interact, from body language, from touching, hugging, feeling, walking around, and so forth. And it's just like you said, it's not conducive in a square box like this for me to show vulnerability, because sometimes vulnerability often is also observed, not given, right?
Absolutely.
I'm walking around the block, it's maybe my tone of voice and my body language that you read as a cue. You go, hey, Mia, just wondering. And then you ask the question. Whereas here, you don't know how I'm sitting, you don't know how I'm interacting. So you're right. I think that, and those spaces where, leadership can, well, force is probably not the right word, bring people together in that human environment so people can show humility, especially at the leadership level, I think is really important. We've got a few questions. Some of them might have been asked, but I think we're going to throw a few around here. So, maybe this one for you, Abhishek. It's a two-part question, but we'll go. Many organizations have strong executive vision for AI, but struggle to implement. We talked about, failure of implementation of AI. And, how can leaders align vision with the day-to-day operation realities where majority of the organization work? And then, so what advice would you give also organizations who are embarking on their, their first, AI adoption? Maybe I'll put that one to you.
Yeah. So I think it will all start with leadership awareness of what is going to change, right? And everything drives right from top, as we all know. Sometimes bottoms up, but very few, and unless it's aligned to the strategy. And business outcomes are important, right, for everybody. So leaders needs to align and drive these transformation very, very importantly. I'll answer this question with an example. In professional sports world, like your football clubs or NBAs and all of that, we see transformation, we see the change more often than we see in the organization. So there's a very interesting paper study on the leadership and organization and culture transformation in professional sports, which happen, and they talk about 7 key steps, and these are that how does the leadership drive these change, because it has to be clearly communicated to each of those players that since the leadership change, this is the vision change, this is the value change. What are those dysfunctional elements that needs to be diagnosed by the leader as he comes on board and he looks at those change, and that dysfunctional element has to be followed across in the organization. There should be change in the vision, mission, values, and those are quite necessary. As you transform, you need to drive those transformations along with your cultural alignment. Your belief system needs to be shaken up a little bit. Lead by example. Leaders needs to come forward to lead by example. And I think nowadays it's not just the leader who is driving the organization, but also your tech leaders, your HR leaders, your supply chain leaders, your operation leaders. All of that should constantly reiterate the same message, walk the talk for your team. Embed this new element and constantly go back to check that what is serving the culture of these changes and transformation and what is not serving. So whatever is not serving also needs to be called out for, because if you will not call out for what is not required for transformation, that might create a larger pool of individuals following those common thought process. Sustained improvement, quite importantly. Also adapt and innovate. So adapt to new stuff and try to innovate and move forward. And these are learnings from a sports club study, which was done, and very, very interesting study, and gives us these 6-7 steps that how do you manage a good performing sports club and their performance to improve.
Thank you. Maybe you can put the link to that again in the chat while I ask Arshy this question.
I will.
I love philosophical, ethical questions, Arshy. So this is a juicy one. I think we've got 9 minutes. Maybe I'll throw this your way, but we can all jump in. And it goes back to your controversial change of the title of this talk, right? Where you're now saying tech is the tail wagging the dog. So technology is the driving, culture. And so from this anonymous person, with technology being so integral to daily operations, do you think there's a moral or ethical line where culture should take precedence over efficiency, which is often what technology helps drive? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think even before ethics, it's human that I would prioritize, and I think for controversy, it's not that we would like tech to influence culture. It's just that we're not growing and we're not learning fast enough. So unfortunately, that is what is happening. In reality, what we would want is we want us to maintain our humanization, and we want to stay core to who we are. We have to be empathetic. We have to have emotional intelligence. We have to have intuition. We have to have love in the world, right? And then you have technology, which says, here you are, golden egg, and go and, grow. Now you've got everything. That's what I think the vision looks like. It's just currently, we're not able to find that balance. So that I would say before ethical, I'd even say human. Okay. And then let's move to ethics. Yeah, absolutely. I think who's policing this? Which organizations are really understanding the balance here. We have to have that down. We have to understand that people are now being recruited based on programs that are built into AI engines. Are we making sure diversity is okay? Are we making sure that we're not being biased through the AI bias? All of that, like who is monitoring all of this to make sure that we remain true to our purpose as a human society? And I say society, not individuals, because it is about group. So I think absolutely right, whoever is answering, I don't think that's our vision. I just think that's what's happening today. And we need to, as the more influential leaders out there can get on board and understand this, the more quickly they should change and adopt.
Abhishek, do you have any thoughts on that?
So, for me, as Arshy was talking about, there's two pick up thoughts on that change is imminent. Things are going to change, and it's all about how we prep ourselves now and also in the coming days to adapt to that. I would look at any initiative within HR or coaching or learning or talent, and if that has slightest element of developing change, transformation, and all of that is more important for organization right now what it was ever. I totally believe in driving what Ashi was talking about, the psychological safety element, the inclusivity, the diversity, all of that. But is that driving belongingness? Is that driving that thought that I want to go back and give my 100% every time is key. And leaders to look at in creating those belongingness in the organization and right across the level, just saying hello in the lift to your cleaner or to your security guard while you enter is sometimes enough, to bring that belongingness. And uh, we all lack as a society as we are becoming more and more tech enabled, more and more advanced. So we're losing the societal thought process of bringing humans together was belongingness, and maybe that is something which could drive the sapiens maybe to the right direction.
Sapiens. I'm thinking that's a recommendation. Next panel for the three of us to be in the same room then, right? Not
Yes.
this.
Chai, listening? Are you listening?
I was going to answer this question just quickly, but by all means you can jump in. So there's a question being asked around, with AI having such a high failure rate in organization, what do you think is the biggest oversight companies make when assessing their AI readiness? So I can probably talk firsthand from the number of AI workshops that I run around, and especially training leadership right now. One is around, obviously, organization, lack of understanding of the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of Gen AI, predictive analytic, predictive AI, and so forth? Just not having those basic understandings. The second one is lack of talent, right? Talent is one of the biggest barriers to organizations. They don't have the right people that can analyze the right data or put the right strategies in place from a culture perspective. That's definitely another one I've seen. The data is a mess. Yeah, we talked about legacy technologies, right? We got the globe collecting lots of data, throwing them into data lakes, but they actually don't know what to do with it. Unstructured,
Clean, yeah.
and so it's not clean, so it's not ready to be used. But most importantly, and I think this comes down to my sort of human-centered design and design thinking background, organizations see this fancy, shiny object, call it AI. They jump onto it because they think their competitors are doing it, building a solution, and then going and looking for a problem for it to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just agnostic of AI as well. We know the technologies that fail, Google Glass when it first came out, perfect example, people with ideas around technology, having not done the fundamentals of understanding who the end user or the customer is, what value do they need, what are the pains and gains, then use that to define the solution, of which AI may or may not be part of the solution, right? It's just a piece of technology.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's probably the biggest issue. People jumping on the bandwagon. We need a chatbot because our competitors have. We need this Copilot because our competitors have it, and so forth. And not really stopping to go, are we ready? Who are we serving? What problem are we trying to solve and for who? And then decide if a traditional software or AI should sort of solve that problem. Arshy, by all means, jump in. Do you agree, disagree? Anything else you can add there?
No, I agree. I agree there's definitely a lot of bandwagon happening. I agree with that. But I think apart from maybe saying what problem we have to solve, I think it's almost like a recce of what more can we do, if we have something like AI with us. So, going away, spend a couple of days away, get some experts in to really show you what it can do, and then see how the company can benefit, grow, who we need to get onto it. I think that time has gone to me that I think that people can't benefit from it. I think everyone can benefit from it. At least that's my impression now. But yes, using it the right way, using it knowing that you're not going to be stuck with some data biases. The other day, this happened. ChatGPT 3 days ago, fake name I put in there and asked for an opinion on it, and it gave me an opinion on it. It doesn't exist. So,
Right?
yeah, it's like, garbage in, garbage out. So we still have to make people understand all of this exists and how to play with it. But I completely agree, it's not for the sake of doing it, but I think, go get educated, go take people away. How is this going to help you become better as workers, as organizations, as people even? What can you, because you'll have more time to do other things. So yeah, so I think partly agree and maybe partly say learn more.
More. Yeah, no, thank you. And I think that's a really good segue to obviously where Random Walks and Academy Excite play it, right?
Yes.
Help educate and provide training. So I think if people in the audience, you've agreed with Arshy and Abhishek and you believe, right, maybe the first step is to actually get trained, educated, understand fundamentals, and please reach out to them and explore what training needs you have, and I'm sure we can definitely solve those problems. But thank you very much, the two of you. I so wish I was there with you. As I look at the sun dropping out in the Australia. But just wanted to again thank you very much for taking part. Thanks for the audience. We only had one question remaining, which potentially the Random Walks crew can sort of pick up and to Hector. But otherwise, unless there's any final mic drop statements you guys want to make, maybe the one sentence. What are you most excited about for the coming future, Arshy?
Staying human.
Fantastic. Okay, Abhishek.
I think continuous learning is going to be the key, and will remain for a while, because with the changing needs, we need to constantly learn.
Yeah. And I guess mine would be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I like it.
true.
Continuous evolution. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
I bid you all goodbye, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And until next time, you take care and have a lovely day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.